Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another segment of Youth Perspectives. Today we have two special guests with us, Bint Zahra and Shan Zahra. Assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Alaikum salam. How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah. And today we have a very relevant topic as it is the start of the new year. We are going to be talking about New Year's resolutions and how to keep them. And then at the end we will talk about a little bit about Bibi Fatima alayhi salam. Bibi Fatima salamu alayha. So, starting off, Bint Zahra, why do you think that we have the concept of setting New Year's resolutions?
I think it's a very good way of gathering our values and rethinking what we want to do, and if we're doing something right or if we're wasting our time, if there's some way to make what we're doing better. And it also is a great way to reevaluate our Islamic perspective, like looking at if we're doing enough mustahabat or if we're devoting enough time to our Imam alayhi salam.
Yeah, definitely. It is a really important time to reevaluate where we stand as Muslims, because I feel like a lot of the time when it comes, it comes for the new year to begin, a lot of us, we kind of think about our worldly, gains. We think about how we can achieve in this world, like with our jobs or with our personal relationships, with our own selves, our hobbies, our interests, our own personal goals, and that's really great. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that we are Muslim, and that's a great point that she mentioned, to really think about where we stand, from an Islamic perspective. Like, are we praying enough? Are we praying on time? Are we reading enough Quran? Are we being kind enough to others, to our parents? Are we giving enough charity? So those are all really important things that we do have to consider, and sometimes those things are the very things that get overlooked because we're so busy trying to make resolutions on other things. So for me personally, I think the concept of setting New Year's resolutions is just a way for us to kind of reevaluate where we are in our lives, to kind of regroup and restart in a better way, because a lot of the times as the year comes to an end, we get so busy, things get so hectic that we kind of lose sight of where we want to be. We lose sight of our goals, we lose sight of everything. But when the new year comes around, it's like a chance for us, especially since we do get like that long winter break. It's a perfect chance for us to kind of stop and like think about, what happened in the past year, where we want to go from now on, and kind of see what worked for us this year, what did not work for us, in the past year. And then we can kind of regroup and reevaluate and then go on from there. So the new year is a perfect way, especially since we're not busy with the hassle of school or college. And for those of you who do have work, the Christmas break comes around, so you guys do have a break during that time as well. So it's a perfect opportunity to kind of just relax and refresh and then come back stronger than ever. And at the same time, the new year is really important because a lot of people, they question, okay, every single year, why do we have to kind of make amends to change for the better? And the reason is because personal growth is an ongoing process. We can't just, be the same consistently all the time. So obviously, as the new year goes by, we kind of have to slowly improve so we can become the best versions of ourselves little by little. And we're going to talk a little bit more about, what realistically is, a good way of setting resolutions to the point where we won't really kind of break them off, because we'll talk a bit about how no one really keeps their New Year's resolutions. But just for now, like what we're going to be talking about is Shan Zahra. Do you have any resolutions of your own?
Well, I'm a big believer in resolutions, so yeah, I did set myself a few resolutions, but I made a list in a way where I go from small to big, so I can work on the smaller ones, the easier ones first, and if I know that I'm strong enough in following my own plan, then I move on to the bigger ones. And so the smallest one that this itself was also pretty big too, but for me it was to be thankful for what I have, for whatever I do. Anytime I feel even the slightest bit ungrateful, to remember what I have, to remember what God has blessed me with. And it's in human nature to be to kind of curse what we don't have, or to curse the fact that why is life so hard. But if you think about it, if we remind ourselves that in those situations we want to focus on what we do have, what God has blessed us with, that really helps with everything. And like you said, even with the Islamic perspective and the worldly perspective, to be thankful for what we have, for what God has given us, for the opportunities that we have, for even the little things like the house that we live in, the family that we have, stuff like that. So for me, one was that, to just be thankful. Another one was to not procrastinate as much. I tend to waste a lot of time sometimes, and so to not do that. Little things, just being more kind. And then the bigger ones were, focus on praying namaz on time. Because, shaitan can get in the way really easily. and he makes us forget our wajibat really easily. He makes us forget even our mustahabat really easily. And if we can focus on those things, praying on time, making sure our qaza namazes are done, to not have any combs, on our as a burden on us, or to give charity, things like that. Those little things that are basics. But when we think about it, they're not that basic because we don't focus that much on them. And so for me, it was just all the basic things to focus on.
Oh yeah, definitely. Those are really great resolutions to have. And especially I love the one about gratitude, because I feel like a lot of the times when we look at our lives, we always find things that we don't like. We always, we pick out the things that we wish could be better. And you know how they say the grass is always greener on the other side. And unfortunately, that's a mindset that a lot of us tend to adopt in our lives. But gratitude is, although it's more of a complicated resolution to have, because you can't really kind of gauge gratitude. It's something that's more gray and subjective. It's not really that materialistic, but it's one of the most important things of all. And we will talk about this later, how mindset and perspective, your outlook on life is so important. And gratitude is one of the most important outlooks to adopt, because at the end of the day, if you are content with your life, then nothing else can stop you from achieving your goals. But if you keep focusing on the negatives, that's going to weigh you down, that's going to drag you down, that's not going to allow you to really excel and move forward. So gratitude is very important, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And then also procrastination. If you're a student in high school or college, then your winter break has come to an end. And obviously, we're starting our school or college again, and classes are beginning, and it might get overwhelming for all of us. And then we fall into this tendency to procrastinate. And that is something that every year I tell myself that I won't do, and little by little I am improving, and that's a great, resolution to have. A great way to kind of help achieve that resolution is to set, have a planner or set specific dates for when you're going to do things, divide up your work. So planners come in handy as well. So that's a great resolution for every student, and every student should have that resolution, because procrastination is really terrible, especially when it comes to your grades. It can really harmfully affect your grades. And then namaz, obviously a few sessions ago, Shan, Zahra and I talked about the importance of a namaz. We had a whole segment on that, and obviously if you watched it, you understand that namaz is so important. And that's a great resolution to have as well. That's something that all of us should have, regardless of how old we are, or regardless if we're Sunni or Shia or whatever Muslim we are, to pray on time, because namaz is so important, and that's the most important thing of all. So just like Bint Zahra mentioned, that our resolutions should surround the Islamic perspective as well. So just like Shan Zahra mentioned, namaz is something that we really should adopt in our lives, and praying on time is really important as well. So for me personally, I do have resolutions as well. One is a really common one, to just be healthier. So to have better, food choices. It gets really easy, especially being a college student, to not really care much about your health, because you're just running in between, classes, and traffic is terrible, and your schedule is so busy that when you kind of, find 5 minutes in the day, you really don't care about preparing something healthy. You just go to a fast food restaurant and find the first thing that you see, and that's a good cost, and then you just kind of eat it. So that's something that I really want to change for this year, to kind of be a little healthier in my food options. And then I want to help others more, because I feel like you can never give too much. You can never stop giving to other people. You can always continue to do that. So I just feel like that's something that's really important as well. And lastly, this is a very vague one, but it kind of is really important, and that is to kind of get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in whatever we do. So that ties back in with praying namaz on time, being kinder to others, reading more Quran, being more respectful towards parents, just doing whatever that brings you closer to Allah. That's something that I do want to adopt, because as Muslims, that should be our number one goal, to get closer to the one who created us. So those are just some resolutions that I had myself. And I want to mention that the new year is not a specific time where we can make something, make a resolution to change for the better. So don't think that the new year is the one and only excuse that you have to make any changes in your life. The new year is just a convenient time where you can change. But we're going to talk about this later as well, that the new year, that even any other day, even if the new year passed, because it already did, even if you didn't make any resolutions, you still can, and you can still change even now. And we're going to talk about that a little later. But now moving on to Bint Zahra. Do you think that people usually follow through on their resolutions?
I actually don't think so, because I don't know anyone who's made a resolution on January 1st, all motivated, oh my God, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, and they went through. It usually doesn't happen. But the effect of it is really good, because the few people that do follow through on the resolutions, it makes a huge difference, because little by little you make a big difference, and it's very significant. And sometimes I've seen people sometimes some people get, it's a really good way for them to start the year, because they say, oh, it's January 1st, it's a clean slate, and then they start over, which is a really good way too.
Yeah, definitely. It's really good, but and unfortunately, a lot of people, they really don't keep their New Year's resolutions. And I actually have a statistic. First of all, only 40% of Americans, on average, make New Year's resolutions. So that's like 60% of the population that doesn't even bother, unfortunately. And out of those 40% of Americans, only, depending on the sources, either 8% or 9.2% of people keep their resolutions. So that's actually really sad, because, and I guess it makes sense, because I'm pretty sure all of us have been through this, where we kind of make a resolution but we don't really follow through on it. Like we say, oh, I'm going to eat healthier, and then we don't. So that's why we keep having the same resolution. And that's something that I also read about, that researchers say the reason why we keep having the same resolutions over and over again is because we often fail at them. And that's why every single year we have to kind of do, promise ourselves we'll do the same exact thing, but then we don't. So that's something that is kind of alarming, because the fact that only 8% or 9.2% of the population, stays true to their resolutions means that something is definitely an issue, and that has to be addressed. So, the reality of the situation is that most people don't follow their resolutions, and there are many reasons, but the main reason is because there's a lack of sustainable motivation. So that means that people probably keep too many resolutions, or you keep resolutions that you know that you cannot achieve, unrealistic resolutions, like, oh, I'm going to lose 100 pounds this year. Like, that's not realistic. So, stay realistic and keep your goals in a way where you can achieve them, and that way it'll be much easier. So that's one note. And then also just the fact that there's a lack of sustainable motivations, it's still one of the best ways to change your lives. So researchers say that even though you might not have motivation, or you might always fail in keeping your New Year's resolutions, it's still one of the best ways to make a change in your life, because it's still at the back of your mind. Whenever you make these resolutions, you at least still have that, in your mind, that, okay, I'm going to have a goal and I'm going to change for the better. So that's something that's really important, and that we do have to understand and be careful for that. Whenever we do make resolutions, know that they often fail. So with that being said, that shouldn't discourage you from keeping your resolutions. It should just encourage you to kind of maybe approach them from a different angle, from a different perspective, and trying to maybe think about why they don't work usually, and maybe what you can do to make them work, later on. So, Shan and Zahra, what do you think people can do? Bringing that question up again, what do you think people can do to accomplish their resolutions, since most people really can't do that?
Yeah, because I was just thinking, how a lot of the times we don't make those resolutions for ourselves. Sometimes people even think about doing something to impress someone else, or because someone else asked them to do something. And so, the first thing that we can do to actually, work for our resolutions is to make sure to only make a resolution that we know or we're doing for ourselves. We know that the basis for that motivation is true only for ourselves, because we know that we can work for it. Because I am the only person that can harm or benefit myself, obviously there's other factors too, but what I do affects me the most rather than anyone else. And so the first thing that I thought was just work hard. Like you said, there's sometimes a lack of actual motivation. And so even if you feel like sometimes you're not as motivated, you're not as inspired, still just work hard, persevere through it. Don't give up, because I feel like when you're working towards something, when you're working towards a goal, the hardest part is to actually stay on that path, to actually follow that path that you have set for yourself. And so that's the hardest part. And then just the same thing. Just make sure you only set goals for yourself that you know you can achieve. Don't be such an overachiever that is unrealistic, that you cannot. You're only doing it because it sounds nice, but you won't actually be able to do it. So just that's what you can do to work hard for yourself. Just work hard first of all, and just do things that you can do.
Yeah, that she put it in a really simple way, and that I really love that. Just do things that you can do. Sometimes we make a list, and if you think about it, it's like if you look at the whole list, you're like, can I really do all these things? So be realistic, and that's the number one thing. I love the thing you said about doing things for yourself. So that is true. A lot of the times, if you really go deep down and you think about your New Year's resolutions, how many of those things are you really just doing for yourself, and how many of those things are you doing because you think it'll increase your public image, you think it'll just make you look better, you think it'll help your reputation, or you think you have to do it just because society says you have to, peer pressure or whatever the societal or cultural norms are of the place you live in. So it's really important to understand that true motivation comes when you do something for your own self. True motivation comes when you understand and you think about why you have to do something, and you know that you have to do it for your own personal reasons. So that's a great point that you made in perseverance as well, that we have to really persevere and stay consistent in our mindset and in our goals, because as the year goes by, it gets easier to kind of lose sight of our goals and to kind of just get off track and get distracted and then stop. So some things, my answer to the question, what are some things that people can do to accomplish their goals? So number one, like Shan and Zahra mentioned, set realistic goals. So if you have 10 things you want to accomplish, maybe prioritize and maybe solve 5 of them. So that will be a good start, because maybe if you're looking at 10 things all at once, it'll get overwhelming. You won't know how to juggle all of them, and then you'll just lose sight of what you're doing. So be realistic, set a few, but make sure they're like top priority in your life, and those are the 5 things that you really, really want to change. And then next year or in a few months, if you see improvement, you can add on new resolutions. But starting off with too many is not a good idea. So set realistic goals. Don't be so hard on yourself. So don't set really, really hard resolutions. For example, if losing weight is a big one, when I searched up the common resolutions, so I'll just use that example. If you want to lose, 50 pounds, don't put that on your New Year's resolution list. Maybe put 25. Kind of work your way through. Don't put really unattainable goals on there. Or, for students, I want to make all A pluses this semester. That's a great resolution. But if you're a student who always makes Fs, maybe have a resolution to maybe make all Bs. Kind of work your way up there. Don't make unrealistic resolutions, because when you're all pumped up and excited for the new year and the new semester, you may feel like you're on top of the world, you can do anything you want to do, but then when reality, sinks in and you're there, taking that test, then you'll realize, oh my God, I can't do this. So please keep realistic goals and don't be so hard on yourself. It's okay to gradually improve. Remember, human progress and progression and personal growth is an ongoing process. So you're not going to jump from point A to point Z all the way. You have to slowly get your way through. So don't be so hard on yourself, and set realistic goals, and set kind of not easy, but something that challenges you a little, but not something that's completely unattainable. So you know your limits better than anyone else. No one else can dictate that for you. You know yourself the best. So that is something that you should keep in mind. Also, keep your eye on the target. So every single day or every single week, kind of reevaluate what your New Year's resolutions were, and see if you're on track to achieving them or not. Because it's not good enough if we just make a list and then we say, okay, I'm going to achieve them, and then we just keep them up all in our head. So we have to kind of think about it either every day or every week or maybe every month. Just sit down and say, okay, where am I compared to where I want to be, compared to where was I when the year just started? So kind of think about all of that and keep it in your mind, because if you don't, you'll kind of forget it, and then it'll be too late by the time you remember, and it's like you already have an F in your class. So kind of be careful and always reevaluate and remind yourself that this is something I have to achieve, and every day I'm going to do something to kind of get closer to that goal. And that brings me to my next point, which is, in my opinion, the most important point. If you want to keep your New Year's resolutions, you have to make a plan to achieve it and get closer to your goal day by day or week by week or even month by month. It's not a race. Some people will achieve their resolutions faster depending on who they are, depending on what the resolutions are, depending on what the circumstances of their life are. So everyone's different, and don't compare your success to anyone else's. The only person you're up against is your own self, your own, the person you were last year. You're just trying to be better than that person. So as long as you're kind of, becoming better, then you're on the right track. So keep a plan. This could be anything. You can keep it in your mind, but it'll maybe help you writing it down. If you write it down, that's what I like to do a lot. Write it down and kind of keep realistic steps. What can I do to actually improve? So if I'm trying to improve my grade, what can I do every single day to improve that? Maybe I'll study more this day. I won't watch more TV this day. I'll attend a study session with my friends. I'll, talk to my teacher after school. So keep realistic steps. Or if you want to, lose weight, I don't know why that's the only thing I'm coming up with. I don't know, any other goal, right? Maybe to eat healthier. That's one of mine. Okay, we'll talk about that. To eat healthier, maybe instead of eating like 5 servings of fruit every single day from the get-go, maybe, okay, first eat like 2, then gradually increase to 3, and then to 5, until you're so used to incorporating fruits in your diet that it becomes an everyday thing. So just like that, make a plan and kind of ease yourself into that goal, because you can't just change overnight. It's a gradual process. So kind of slowly make a plan where you can achieve it, and either, depending on who you are, every day reevaluate where you are, or every week or every month, depending on the resolution. And as long as you're progressing, you're fine. Okay, don't really care about how fast or slow you're doing it. As long as you're moving in the right direction, you should be okay. And then lastly, reward yourself. Because a lot of us, we're so hard on ourselves, and we kind of beat ourselves up if we just have one failure. So positive reinforcement and like encouragement goes a long way. It goes a longer way than we could have ever imagined. So reward yourself. If you eat healthier, maybe kind of treat yourself to like an hour extra of TV, or I would say eat ice cream, but that won't help the eating healthy thing. But you know what I mean, right? Kind of do something fun, go out for a movie, just treat yourself in whatever way you like, take a break, or take a day off, just do something that you love. And by rewarding yourself, you're gonna actually kind of train your brain to respond to these New Year's resolutions. So every time you do something that helps your resolutions, that helps you achieve your resolutions, your brain will think, oh my God, I'm gonna get something good. And then your brain will associate you accomplishing your resolutions to something that's good, and then that will make you more inclined to actually accomplish your New Year's resolutions. So that's something that's really important, that even after you set a plan and you are realistic, at the end of the day, you do reward yourself every now and then, so that you kind of boost yourself and boost your morale. So with that being said, Bint Zahra, what should people do? Because it's obviously, what's the date? January 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, I think. So Bint Zahra, what should people do if the year already started and they're losing motivation or already failing to keep their resolutions?
I think a great way for me personally was to have a planner. I realized like in the first semester I had a planner and everything was working according to plan. But then the next semester I lost my planner, and instead of getting another one, I got lazy and I didn't get one. And I just started lacking on a lot of work. I think a great way to maintain your resolutions is having a planner, and also remembering that just because it's January 1st or December 31st and you have to set a resolution doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It's not always the date. If you think about it the right way, it's honestly any other day of the year. It's January 1st. It could be May 1st, right? So it doesn't matter what the date is. I think it matters more if you were paying attention to your goal and seeing, okay, how is this helping me as a person? And then bringing yourself back. There's no calculation. No one's stressing you to follow a limit or a goal. It's you. It's making yourself better.
Yeah, definitely. I love that point about keeping a planner, because that's something I do a lot as well. I keep a planner very specifically of everything that I do, and that's something that's really important as well. So you can keep your eye on what's going on, and you have like a visual representation of where you are and what you have to accomplish. And I love that point you made. I actually had that same exact point about that. It's not the end of the world if it's not January 1st and you didn't keep resolutions yet, or if you broke some already. Because at the end of the day you make the intention to change for the better is more important than any January 1st or December 31st. You set the day that you decide to change. That's on you. So don't let any calendar or don't let society dictate when you should become better. That's an ongoing process. That's something that you should be doing for yourself. That's something that you should be deciding for yourself, that today I'm going to change. Because, if you have that mindset that I can only change after I make my resolutions on January 1st, then if you have that, then that means like all hope is lost until next year. So you only have that limited window of opportunity where you can change for the better if you have that mindset. But just like Bint Zahra mentioned, that you decide when you want to change. That's on you, and no one else can really dictate that for you. So that's a great idea to kind of just maybe mark it on your calendar, make it all pretty, like this is the day that I'm going to kind of change and start, becoming a better person, start achieving my goals, start attaining whatever I want to attain for this coming year. And it can never be too late, even if it's January or February, or some people go according to the Islamic calendar. So in Ramadan, if you are a Muslim, which you probably would be if you're watching this, but if it's Ramadan, people have that mindset that I'm going to change for the better, because that's a perfect time when we go to the masjid every single day. Or even if you don't, you're still fasting every day, you're reading Quran, you're doing all these du'as, you are really thinking more about Allah more than you ever did, and blessings are so abundant, and you're keeping away from sin, and it's such a blessed month actually. So a lot of us kind of use Ramadan as a way to improve. And then for the rest of us, Muharram is a great way as well, because that's Islamically that is the start of the new year, so technically that is the new year for Muslims. And what's perfect about Muharram is that while we're mourning for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the sacrifice that he made, we're attending all these majlises. And if you watch the sessions during Muharram, we kept talking about this, how for speeches, whenever we keep notes and we go and read back on them, it kind of inspires us to change for the better. So Muharram is a great time as well, because we constantly get exposed to all these inspirational and thought-provoking speeches that inspire us to change for the better. So don't ever think that just January 1st is something that you have to really mark on your calendar as the day that I'm going to change, because as a Muslim you can change any other day, and even if it's not Ramadan, even if it's not Muharram, any day is a day that you can change. Yes.
Another thing to keep in mind, I feel like, is that you shouldn't push yourself to do everything in one day. If you want to lose weight, you don't just work out, do 100 squats in a day, and then for the rest of the week you're eating chocolates. I think it's very important to ease yourself into it. So instead of going, okay, I'm going to be super organized, keep a plan of everything, just have a regular notebook you have, write the date, and just write a little bit what you're supposed to do. I think that's a great way to ease into what you're supposed to do for the year.
Yeah, definitely. Like with the exercising, right? Like if you want to do 100 squats a day, and you did 0 yesterday, that's unrealistic. So maybe do 20 and then 40, and then we just keep increasing until you reach to 100. So that's a great point as well, to ease your way into it. And obviously if you're not someone who likes keeping a planner, then just keep a notebook, any piece of paper that helps you kind of document what's going on, what you have to do. So that's important. Also, if the new year started and you don't have your resolutions yet, or if you're failing to keep them, don't panic. Remember, you can change any time. And also kind of maybe reevaluate your resolutions and your priorities, because we mentioned this before a few minutes ago, that maybe the reason why resolutions fail is because you have unrealistic expectations of your own self. You set unrealistic goals, unachievable, unattainable goals for the now, right? Theoretically you can achieve any goal that you want, but just in the time frame that we're talking about, within these few weeks or few months, be realistic and just how much you can achieve. So if your resolutions aren't working, like in the past, in the previous years, if they did not, then you should really sit and think about why they haven't been working and what you can do to kind of change the way you're approaching your resolutions. So if I wanted to get good grades, pretend I get all F's in everything. I'm a terrible student. I'm about to drop out, and I get all F's. Okay, so if this year I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to get all A's, and then I don't, the next year I'm going to sit down and think about, okay, why did I not get all A's? What happened? And the reason is because I probably had unrealistic goals, and I should probably be more realistic and say, okay, maybe I'll get C's or B's this year. And to do that, I'll slowly, little by little, study a little more. Because if I'm a student who never studies, I can't just wake up tomorrow and study for 8 hours straight. I have to ease into it. So just like Bint Zahra mentioned, easing into it is very important, because if you're too harsh on yourself, maybe for the first few days or week, or maybe for the first month, if you're lucky and very strong, you can kind of manage. But after a while, when life kind of starts getting to you and you get so busy with the daily grind of life, you're really going to lose sight of your motivation. You're going to lose sight of your resolutions as well. So keep your eye on the prize. So that's really important. And if your resolutions aren't working, that's the number one thing that you should do. Kind of sit down and say, why aren't they working? What can I do differently? Because maybe the way you think is right is something that's not really working for you. So step outside of your comfort zone, do things that you never thought you could do, and try different approaches that you maybe thought wouldn't work, but who knows, maybe they will. Because how many times do we do things that we don't think we like, but then we end up being really good at it, right? Whenever we try new things. So that's one thing. And then lastly, try different methods to achieve your goals. So one thing is to kind of reevaluate your resolutions and prioritize, and then one thing is to reevaluate how you approach them. So again, if you have 10 different resolutions and you can't achieve all of them, it's going to be hard kind of taking things out, because it'll give you the illusion that you're not achieving as much. But believe me, achieving 5 things the right way versus thinking that you're achieving 10 things and then not is way better. So even if you're achieving a few, that's better than just having a lot and never reaching them. So those are 2 things that I think that we should all do, is to reevaluate our resolutions and kind of prioritize which ones are better. And then lastly, just if we see something not working like in the previous years, just reevaluate how you're approaching these resolutions and kind of change the way you're approaching them, so you can really kind of achieve them this year even better than you can achieve them last year. So Shan and Zahra, for you personally, what does the beginning of the new year mean?
For me, the beginning of the new year is like it's like a symbol. It's symbolic to me in a way that I know that okay, yeah, I'm still continuing the same academic year that I was in, but otherwise it's a whole new year. I can start with a clean slate if I want a completely fresh slate. You know, I could make a whole new routine for myself because it's the start of a new semester too. So I can do things differently. If I know that there's something in my routine or in my life that I don't like how I'm doing, if I already know that I'm not doing this right, but I just can't find the motivation or the right time or the right space to change that, the new year, like you said, starts off with the vacation, with the holiday that we have. So during that time we can kind of just motivate ourselves and like kind of set a game plan for ourselves, where we know that now that the new year is starting, this is how I want to be, this is the person that I want to be. And like you said, our only competition is the person that we were last year. We don't want to be that person anymore, and which is why we're setting all these resolutions for ourselves. And so I think that's what the new year means for me. It's just symbolic of a fresh start.
Yeah, definitely. And just, I like that thing that you said, the term game plan. That's really interesting. And just like she mentioned, the vacation and the break is such a great opportunity, and take that to, use that to your advantage. So, if you're someone who is not in college or high school anymore, then you I know you really miss having this break. And if you're a college student, you're going to have like a month for a break. And if you're in high school, you'll have 2 weeks? That's still a very long time. So you have kind of a moment to kind of just like refresh yourselves and kind of just recharge before the new year begins, before all these new responsibilities kick in. So that's something that you should really take advantage of before that time is lost. And then for me personally, the new year is a time to refresh. That's just something that we have to do. We need a break every now and then, and the new year is a perfect opportunity for that. And sometimes for New Year's resolutions, I do not make a physical list, but I kind of keep it in my head sometimes that, okay, I'm going to do these and these things, and then for whichever thing that requires a list, for example, like, getting better grades in school, because I'm pretending to be a student who makes Fs, right? So I'll have a planner and I'll write those things down. So you could, for example, eating healthier. So for whatever you want to do, make a list. And for me, that's what New Year's is, to kind of know what you want to do and know how you're going to achieve it, and just refresh and recharge after a really long year, and to just motivate yourself to become a better person. And I feel like at the end of the day, all of us have similar views on the new year, but like we mentioned, the new year shouldn't be the only time where you find that motivation. You should have the motivation within yourself to change whenever you feel like it's necessary. Because if you feel like right now you're not at your best self, you should not have the excuse that I'm going to wait, 12 months later, the next January 1st to change for the better, because that's not an excuse. Because, we obviously know that there is no guarantee that we're going to be there next year. So we have to really change for the better as soon as we can. Bint and Zahra, what do you think is the right way to start with the new year, if there's any right way?
I don't think there's a right way specifically for every person generalized, but I've noticed a lot that we have lives that are so busy, school, college, all of that stuff, and we tend to forget Islam a lot. Like, just because we wear a hijab, it doesn't mean it's enough. We need to spend more time, because God's given us so much and we tend to give him so less in return. Not that he needs it, but we need it more than he does. Like, he doesn't need it, we need it. And so we have 17 rakat in our salat every day, and we spend 1 minute, if even, per rakah. That means people who don't recite Quran or go to the masjid or whatever, they're basically spending 17 minutes out of their whole 24 hours for Allah. So I think you don't have to start with something big. Just going to the mosque every Thursday, go for Dua Kamel, not even going to the mosque, just not even reciting it, just putting it on your phone. Everyone has a phone these days. Everyone can access YouTube. You could just put Dua Kamel in your background even while doing your homework or whatever, or even something as little as reciting Dua Zamana every morning. That's so little. It takes 20-30 seconds, but it's still a great way to start your day. Or even reciting Ayatul Kursi. It's guaranteeing you safety. It's so many benefits. Why not? Even worldly benefits and benefits in the hereafter. There's so much sawab. And God, we've heard so many stories where God has given you blessings just because you had this one small habit, like saying Bismillah before doing everything. One small habit that guided you through the right path.
Yeah, definitely with the Zahra. And that's like a really good point that you mentioned that sometimes we have the tendency to kind of normalize Islam because we think, okay, we wear hijab, we pray, we're good enough, right? But then we kind of lose our connection with Allah that way because, as the daily life goes on, we kind of lose our priorities when it comes to where we are as a Muslim. So that's a great way. The new year, the right way to start is, to really start in the name of Allah, say Bismillah and kind of just really think about where you want to be as a Muslim. So this whole session we talked about all these materialistic things, right? Like losing weight, eating healthier, getting better grades. But really the most important thing is how you achieve as a Muslim. How you attain your goals as a Muslim. So if you pray more, pray on time, read more, Quran, you read more du'as, do du'a kumil, go to the masjid more maybe, or do any other thing, give more charity, be kinder to your parents, to your family, your friends. There's so many things. And that's the beautiful thing about Islam that, Allah literally, there's so many ways that Allah gives you blessings for every little thing. If your intention is pure, even with your intentions, any action can be something that Allah can give you blessings for. So kind of take that to your advantage and really start the new year with that. And then also, one thing that I do want to mention, the right way to start with the new year, a lot of it has to do not with what you do, but with how you think. So at the beginning I mentioned this, that your mindset and your perception are more important than anything else. Because we mentioned, gratitude, how it's all in your mind. So if you're adopting a positive mindset, a positive outlook on life, nothing can stop you from achieving your goals. But if you have a negative, pessimistic outlook, then it doesn't matter how easy your resolutions are, you're going to have trouble achieving them. So the important thing is to stay confident, believe in yourself, and have a positive perception, a positive outlook and attitude on life, and to kind of have this mindset that I can do it, and that even if I can't, I will, make a list and make like these realistic goals where I can achieve whatever I want to achieve. So that's all we have to say about New Year's resolutions. Obviously, that's such an extensive topic, but we're going to talk a little bit about Bibi Fatima, salamu alayha, because it is around the days of her wafat. So, Shan Zahra, can you tell us a story or a hadith from Bibi Fatima's life?
So this relates to Bibi Fatima and Bibi Zainab, salamu alayha. When Bibi Zainab Salam Alayha was born, Lady Fatima took the newborn baby to Imam Ali alayhi salam and asked him to name the baby. And Imam Ali alayhi salam replied that he would not precede the Messenger of Allah in such a manner, and what he meant was that the Messenger of Allah was still alive. So how could he, Imam Ali alayhi salam, name the baby while he was still alive? And so Lady Fatima takes the baby to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and when she does, she asks him to name the baby. And what he says is that I cannot precede Allah in such a manner, that he cannot name the baby because how we've heard that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, only ever said anything that he said was only what Allah wanted him to say. And so when he said that, Angel Jibreel came to the Prophet and said that the name of this baby girl is Zainab, and that Allah has picked this name for her. Much like how he had picked the names for Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam as well. And this is such a small little event. We know that Bibi Zainab had a very tragic event happen in her lifetime, which we commemorate every Muharram, and we even commemorate it during the year. But the birth of a child, especially in the house of the Ahlul Bayt, is such a pure event. And I just love this because how being the Ahlul Bayt, they didn't think that they were, at the position of naming their baby. They left it to Allah. And so I love this little story because of how pure and blessed it sounds,
Yeah, it's really beautiful how much the Ahlul Bayt trusted Allah, because obviously Allah, we should all trust Him because He's the best disposer of affairs. There's actually a verse in the Quran, Surah 4, verse 81, and put your trust in Allah, and Allah is the best disposer and enough is Allah as a disposer of affairs. So that's really beautiful because at the end of the day, the verse could have said Allah is the greatest of affairs, but then that would imply that other people or powerful beings can be in charge of our affairs. But that verse says that Allah is enough as a disposer of affairs, meaning that we don't need anyone else but Allah. So that's a very interesting story, and the Ahlul Bayt made sure to adopt that mindset in their lives whenever they did anything, even if it was small or big, like naming their child. So Bint Zahra, what does Bibi Fatima mean to you personally?
Honestly, Bibi Fatima is a role model for me because she raised her voice so many times when, she stood up for things like, how a lot of communities put down women, but she stood up for herself. She stood up for Imam Ali. When Imam Ali was arrested and taken to the Darbar of Yazid, Bibi Fatima went to the Darbar and she fought not physically but through her voice. And even though she had broken ribs and she'd just been attacked, she still felt the need. And have you noticed how everyone remembers how Bibi Fatima or Bibi Zainab went into the Darbar and raised their voice, because they had so much haya and they still went in and they still stood up for what they believed in. So I think that's a great way for young women our age, college, university, all that stuff, to go, like, to follow, because we need to learn something that even according to modern standards, Bibi Fatima has opened our eyes to something that no one else could.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that comparison that you make, that Bibi Fatima and Bibi Zainab were both, put in this position where they had to speak their minds in front of people who were taking away their rights. So one example I wanted to give was, for that, the land of Fadak, where Bibi Fatima had to go and really give a sermon in front of all the people who were oppressing her rights, who were taking away the rights that, her father gave her, that Allah gave her. So that's something that's really important, that even as a Muslim, whenever you have haya, you have this modesty as a woman, you still have it in you to be confident and to stand up for your rights. So the moment someone is taking away your rights, be confident, stand up for it, and you deserve what is meant to be yours. So that's something that I learned from Bibi Fatima, from Bibi Zainab as well. So I like that point that you made, that they were confident and brave at the same time that they were very humble and elegant and graceful. So they were the perfect combination of both. And that's like a very interesting thing, because we usually think that confidence and being, well-spoken is the complete opposite of being, elegant and graceful. But, these personalities showed us that you can be all of them in one, depending on the situation, So lastly, Shan and Zahra, what do you think that we should all learn from Bibi Fatima and her life?
So, when I was thinking about this question, the first thing that came to my mind was just that, first of all, there's an infinite amount of things that we can learn from her. Like you said, she was our role model. She had everything that an ideal Muslim woman should have. She had her hijab, she had her confidence, she had her dignity, she had her knowledge, she had her patience, she had her elegance, mashallah. All of those things, that we aspire to be. And so for me, the main characteristics that I would want in myself that Bibi Fatima salam alaiha had were not only her patience but her dignity and her knowledge. She, we don't focus on anything other than her, other than the tragedies that she faced in her life, but she had a lot of other things that we can focus on, like her knowledge. There's so many, like even in her khutbahs, we can read so many things that she knew that we didn't think that she would ever say out loud, but she did. So many things that we can find in her ahadith, in the stories that we hear about her life, that just astounds me that she had so much knowledge and yet she didn't have a shred of pride inside her. And then when I was talking about her patience, she's gone through so much, losing a baby, getting attacked by men, seeing her husband being arrested, having her house set on fire, her little children watching her go through that pain. For any kind of a mother, that is excruciating. You cannot ever imagine a woman having to go through that. And yet she still did. And she, in the end, was still thankful to Allah for everything that she had. So that's, like I said, going back to what I said in the beginning, that's the kind of thankfulness that I want in my life, to be able to go through anything at all without a single complaint to Allah ever.
She was so humble, and you guys know when she was martyred, like Imam Ali said that he didn't even know that her ribs were broken. So she was so humble and so down to earth that she didn't even want to let Imam Ali know what the pain she was going through, so he wouldn't feel the pain. But other than her tragedies, I feel like a very important aspect of her life is her marriage. It was a very good symbol of how our Islamic, norms of marriage should be, like how she gave her dress away the night of her wedding, even though she knew that she only had one other dress that was old. And I think that's a very, very good example, because sometimes we go, oh, I don't want this, I can give this away, but I'll keep the rest for me and myself, for my use. But that's a really good example of how you should give away what's dearest to you.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great points that, Bibi Fatima, she was so humble. No matter how much knowledge she had, no matter how perfect she was still humble, and that she always was generous. She always gave, and she put other people before herself, even though she knew she was like so important, right? If you're the daughter of the Holy Prophet, if you're like the wife of Imam Ali, you obviously know you have that status, but she was still the most humble, the most generous and kind and considerate person ever. And that's something that we have to think about, because whenever we're selfish, who are we to be selfish? If the Ahlul Bayt were so kind and generous and humble, why are we not like that? So that's something that's really, really interesting, and I love those points that you made. So just to close on this whole topic about New Year's resolutions and Bibi Fatima, do you have any last thoughts or closing remarks on the matter?
Well, not really. I mean, there's so much we can say about her, but this is as much as we could in this amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. Like, no amount of time can do justice to Bibi Fatima or any of the Ahlul Bayt. But just to end this segment, thank you so much for watching, and just keep in mind that at the end of the day, your resolutions are something that you yourself are in charge of. Don't let other people dictate that for you, and just set realistic goals and just have that positive mindset that you can achieve things, and have a mindset to achieve Islamic goals as well, not just materialistic ones, because at the end of the day, being a Muslim is the most important part of our lives and the most important part of our identity. And also just take out time to learn more about Bibi Fatima's life and kind of take examples from her own life and adopt them into your own life, because she is a perfect role model, not just for youth, but not just for women either, but for every Muslim and every person in the world. So again, thank you so much for watching, and inshallah we will see you next time on Youth Perspectives.